2 keys. So we are on an NX7 tonight. Looks very similar, doesn't it, to the other one that I use, but let's hope it's going to play for me, which I've had a little play when I found it. I knew it was here, but it was just I couldn't get to it. So what we have here, what you're going to need is you're going to need fabrics, as you saw from the picture of it. Let me just put this under here now. So you can see we have a dark fabric. It is the combination of shades of the fabric which actually make it work. It could work if it was very different colors. It will still work similarly, but I've chosen to use darks, and this is from the Sewing Bird range by Adidas Sitar. So I have a dark fabric, then I have this medium fabric, then I have this lighter one here, and then there's the background, which is the lightest there is. So that's what we're working with. 4 different shades, or 3 shades, and 1 background fabric, which is pale. It has got a print on it, but it is basically light. So there is our light compared, well, I'll put this one here. There is our light, and you can see it much better as they sit next to each other. So this one is our background. This is light. No, it isn't. It is background. This one is light. It's a light blue. This one is medium. And this one is dark. So even though it's got other shades of blue in it, you can see the background. It is basically the darkest fabric there is. And when you go from light, medium to dark, you can see this one is in between, and this one is the lightest, or the lightest of the blues. And then we have our background, which is completely light, but it has got those little cross stitch marks on there as well. So what we're working with are 7-inch squares for these big ones. And then we are working with 4-inch squares because we're going to make half square triangles. And then we have 3.5-inch background squares, which are going to be purely the squares, and we'll use them as they are. So let's pop those out of the way. Now this particular block, well, as you can, well, no, not as you can see, I'll show you again here. But if you imagine, I'm going to fold this so that you can see. We are going to make, there we are. I fold that along there and then along here. This is what our block is going to look like. So it has a half square triangle here and a background square here. Then it has got a large half square triangle, but this is the square, and it is a split half square triangle, or a split quarter square triangle, because these are quarter square triangles and this is a half square triangle. So it is a combination of this, and we're going to have 4 like that. And then actually when we put them all together, they sit around, I'm just going to unfold it now, they sit around that center square. So I think we'd better get cracking, because there's a few bits to do. Quite straightforward, that I think you will know what you're doing on most of them, but we still need to do it. So on the back of my lightest, this is where we're going to make the half square triangles. So on the back of the lightest one, I've drawn 1 diagonal line. So I am going to pop that right sides together. I'm even going to put a pin there just to hold that nicely. And I'm going to do exactly the same with the other one. Line those edges up and pop a pin in there like so. Oops, that's not going in very well. Well, it's obviously not one of my pins. So let's, because these are nice sharp pins, that's better. Right, so I'm going to take it under the machine. I'm using a 1/4 inch, and where is the length of my stitch? 2, that's fine. So I'm going to put a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to stitch down both sides of the triangle, of the square, of the drawn line. And having done that first one, I'm going to put the next one straight underneath, like so, and stitch down that side too. I'm just going to cut that. Okay. And then I'm going to come back down the other side. Okay. Right, we'll take that pin out because I don't want it to get in the way. And we will just stitch all that way down. I think we'll come even closer. That's it. And then we'll just carry on down. Take that pin out. And stitch all the way down. There. Whoops. There we go. Right. So I have got a pair of scissors. So what I'm going to do on this occasion is I'm going to just cut. You could cut with your rotary cutter, but I'm just going to cut with my scissors roughly on that drawn line. And then we want to either press them open, or, as I'm going to do now, is I'm going to use my, use my, back, I'm not going to, so we'll put my, there we are, let's come down. Okay, so I've got my easy half square triangle roller with a broken end, but for my 3.5 inch line, and I am lining up, which I might do it on the back, it might look easier, that's better. I'm lining up the 3.5 inch and with my stitch line like there, and I am going to trim up that side and down the other side. Then I'm going to cut. Looks as though we're going to play up a bit tonight with the internet dropping out, which is not good, but we're back now. There we are. I'm going around here, down there, trim off in those, and then cover the blade. And I have 2. And then there is my third one. So from our 2 squares of each fabric, I am making 4 half square triangles. Let's make sure I've got that on the right. There we go. And down and across. And 4. I think it's, oh, you keep losing sound. I keep losing the connection I can see on here. So hopefully, whoops, 3.5. There we go. It's hard for you to see. There we are, my stitch line. But there we are, that's on there. And trim that down. And there. And let's just pop the iron on. So I won't need that now, but I am going to need my 4 half square triangles because we are going to press them. Get the pressing mat here. Let's just get our iron here. And as I usually do, pop your darkest colour on top. Oh, that's good. Right, and take one, set the seam, open it out, and press. Similarly here, set the seam, open out. So I'm not stretching it, I am just set, open out, and press that open. And I have actually got some lovely squares there. Okay, so these squares should actually be the same size as these. And look at that. Just look at that. That is exactly what we want. We want our 3.5-inch squares to be exactly the same size. So we're going to need 4 of these along with 4 half square triangles. So let's just shift that just there. We'll bring those back to the machine as there. And what we're going to do now is, this is just a little bit of getting into a routine, put our half square triangles all in the same orientation. So I'm popping them there for the moment. You can see the darker part is all in the same area there. Now, what we need to make sure is that when we join them together, they are all exactly the same. So we need our half square triangle to be at that top left, and then we need a square to be here. Now I'm going to be picky, and these are crosses in one direction, so I'm going to make sure they're the same as well. Okay, so we need to have, and what we're going to do is stitch together one of the squares to one of the half square triangles. So because it's easier for me to just flip one over, I'm going to swivel that around so they're still in the same orientation, or they're still the same goes together, but then I can pop right sides together with my first one, like so. Take it to the machine, and that's it. Align those edges and stitch down that side. So 1/4 inch again. There, all the way down there. Don't cut your thread, but take the next one here. So right sides together, stitch down this edge that I'm holding on to and aligning. There we go. So straight under the needle and carry on stitching for number 2. And then similarly here, straight over onto that half square triangle, align that edge and pop it under and carry on. I haven't quite got that lined up, but I will. Just move that over a little bit. And because we've trimmed it, it fits perfectly. So last one on there. And pop that under too. Stitch down that side. And then all I'm going to do is clip them apart. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to press them. So I should have had my little, shouldn't I? I should have had my little pressing mat so I could have done that moved. So I'm just going to take it to the side here, and I'm just going to press that open, and I'll show you what they look like in a moment, because I think every time I move the camera, it's going to, it's going to freeze, which I don't want it to do that. And now I've just dropped one on the floor. Ho, ho, ho. Oops, there we go. So I've got 3 that I've pressed there, and then this is just the last one, and we can press that there. So now I have got my 4, and they are all in the same orientation. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for the moment, we can set those aside because we're going to stitch them to something else in a moment. So this is where we now take in our next block, which is the 2. These are the medium and the background. So with the medium and the background, we're going to we are going to do a half square triangle, but not the same as you would normally think. So this is a little bit different. I don't think we've ever done this before. So we are going to put them right sides together, background and medium, line those up. I'm going to put a pin just there and make sure those are snugly together. And we'll put a pin just here. Now what we're going to do here is I have drawn a diagonal out from corner to corner in both diagonals. But this time we're not going to stitch like we normally do the whole way across. We are going to stitch from the center a quarter of an inch away from the line out to that point. Then we're going to move to the next diagonal line and we'll stitch again from the center to the left hand side, and then we're going to the corner. Then we're going to go to the center again and stitch to the left hand side of the next line, and similarly to the side of the next line. So let's just give that a go. So as you recall, I'm going to start in the center so that the needle comes down on that center point, and I'm stitching a quarter of an inch to the side, and I'm going out to the corner, and then I'm going to cut the thread, and then I'm going to move around, and again I'm going to go to the center, and I'm going to make sure my needle goes on that line, and I'm going to stitch a quarter of an inch on the left hand side, so we're only stitching on one side, and cut the thread, and then we'll shift around once more, and we're going to, that's it. So my needle is going down on that next diagonal line there, but I'm stitching just to the one side, and there we go. And then the final side just here again. We'll start stitching from the center and out to the corner point. Okay, so we'll now take our pins out because pins and rotary cutters do not work together. So, let's on the drawn lines. So it's not going to cut your stitching. Let's just move that slightly. That's it. So, and bring that up there. So I'm going to put my ruler and I'm going to stitch on the drawn line on the diagonals. So there is there, and I'm going to use the rotary cutter here so we can go along there, and because I can pull that apart actually like that, because the lines are drawn, I can then cut, just make sure it is the drawn line. So I'm going to cut there, and then this one also. Now let's do it this way. I'm going to cut on the drawn line, which is the diagonal. There we go. So I have cut that, and this time what we have is a triangle like this. So I do need to just press that, so we're going to press it to the dark side. So have your dark fabric placed upwards like that, and I will just bring this over to the mat, and we can just press these two. So one at a time. There is my seam, so I'm just going to just pull that open and press. Similarly here, pull that open and press. So what we've got is something, as I say, I don't think you will have seen before. It is a triangle, and it's a split half square triangle. There we go. Oh, there's Margot and Jill. Oh, somebody's asking what it is. So there we have those 4. But we want to make them into squares, so we need something to go on this other side. So on the other side is going to be these. This is where our dark fabric comes in. So I have got 2, so I've laid them together, 2 dark 7-inch squares. So I've got those lined up, and I've got my ruler, and we are going to cut once diagonally, just the once. So I've got my diagonal there, and I have 2. So because I've got 2 squares, I've now got 4 triangles. And with these 4 triangles, they are going to join to those. They are going to join, we will need a little bit more. So let's take these to the machine as well. And so we're just going to stitch these together. So they will fit, but we don't need to trim them down. You may find that they're not exactly the same as our dark, but it does work. Okay, so what you can actually do is find the halfway point on our dark triangle by popping those together like that. Line those points up, and I'll do a little mark there, and then your seam can fit just there. And as you can see, it is slightly smaller, but it does go together. So let's just stitch across here, get those raw edges aligned, like so. And there we go. We can stitch across there. Then we'll do the same with that one too. So just align that point and there, and then we'll get one of our triangles, which is in 2 colours. Line that seam up there, and there's just a tiniest little bit, I'll say, at the other side, but these do fit together in the block and give a perfect block. Just line those edges up, and then we will get our next one, line that up. Whoops, there we go. So I've got my mark there, and align that, or I can just see the crease, align that there. And there's, as I said, there's the tiniest little bit at the other end, but it will fit together. So let's just stitch along here. Just make sure our edges are perfectly aligned. So there's our number 3 and our number 4. Just line those points up, and that center, give it a little pinch. You won't be able to see the crease, but when you're doing it yourself, you will. Okay, so pop that down, and then stitch from this edge too. Okay, so nice and slowly up to there. All the way here, making sure all the seams align at the other side as well. And you don't want to stretch it for it to meet, and then we'll cut that apart. So now let's just trim these apart. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we do need to press those as well. So and we can have the dark on the top, and what we can do then is just iron that back like that, and there is our split quarter square triangle. Whoops, let's do it this way. That's better. And just press that away so that the seam is totally open. And you see that spare bit just at the edge? That was where it looked as though it didn't quite fit, but it is perfect to fit the half square triangle that we've already made. Okay, so there is that one. There we go. Just press that open, and we have 4 of these now. So as you can see, it doesn't take that long. 1, 2, 3, 4. So from these, this is where we are going to work. It's whirring at my end. I think it is yours too. So what we need to do, we have our half square triangle strip block here, and we have the big ones that we've just made. So now we need to just make sure these are in the right way round. So we do need our half square triangle blocks to be, that's it. So the idea is to have them all lined up in the same, so that you've got the blue triangles in that same position. So we need that to go there. And then with our large block here, we need the dark to go along there. Can you see that? So we've got our small light blue here. All right, this is our light, this is our dark, and this is our medium here. So each time, so what we're going to do now is lay that together. And I think what I'm going to do, if you have them all in the same orientation, so we'll have that one there, and just lay them out so that they look the same, and then place them together, right sides together, and you can see how that fits perfectly across there. So we'll put a pin, and that is the seam that we're going to stitch. So the next one, as I bring that one over, that is the same, that one is the same too, and we will line that one up there and put a pin in there. And then the last one here needs to have that one there. So they're all looking identical. So right sides together, and that's going to fit across there. So if I just move those to the side, so because we've got our pin, we know exactly where we're going to be stitching. So line those raw edges up again, just to make sure they're in the right place. And we can take that pin out. I can then line this point up down here. I'll put my finger on. Oh, I thought my thread had broken there. So we can just stitch along there. And then we can take the next one here. And again, we're going to stitch from this end. So just line that up. And we can put the next one. Oops, that's not lined up, is it? That's it. Let's just line that up with the top there. That just shifted a little. And start the stitching. Then we'll take that pin out. And then just make sure that lines up at the bottom. And then we can get those raw edges aligning at the side there. Straight down. And then we can take the next one. So the next one again, just line that top point and start the stitching. As soon as it's anchored, we can take our pin out and then we can line it up down this end also. So, and line up those raw edges. And you can see I don't pin in particular. I just put my finger down on there and stitch to the end. And then the last one here, putting the pin into the two pieces just helps you to know exactly which two pieces you're putting together and the seam that you're stitching. Okay. So let's stitch down there. So now all we're going to do is just clip these apart. Can clip that little edge off because we don't need that to bunny ear. And we have our 4 pieces there. And then all I want to do is just press those open so that we have 4 pieces like that. So nice and flat. And there is one. And there is 2. So what we have in effect is 4 pieces that are rectangles, but they are all the same. And there we go. So the 4 pieces I have, look, there is our second one, exactly the same. There is our third one. You can see the blue is in the same place and that lighter blue. And there. And what we're going to do now, gosh, I need a bigger space really, don't I? What we're going to do, okay, so we're bound to all. So here are our blocks. I'm going to move that across here and I'm going to lift it a little bit higher. So we are going to move them 90 degrees. So this one is going to go straight up there. This next one, I'm going to shift it 90 degrees to the right. This next one, I'm going to do it 180. So it comes down there. Do 200 and, no, at each point. And then that is going to go in the center. Now, this is where the instructions will help you with all of this, really quite straightforward. So this is going to fit on here, right? So we're lining up that square to the center of this whole row, but we're only going to stitch a short way along there, halfway. So if I get a pin and we pop a pin to halfway, we're just going to stitch along there. Actually, what I'm going to do, because I'm going to pick it up as I go because it's quite hard. So let's put my pin as if I've stitched it. So we're only stitching a partial seam from the middle to the outside. Once that's stitched, I shall open it up, and then this, because that's a full seam, that one is going on there and we're going to stitch along there. Then there will be a seam here, so this one is going to stitch up to there. And then when we open it out, this one can then stitch to there. And then I'll show you at the end what we do with that last little bit. It is quite straightforward, but, oh, that's where my cushion's gone off there. Okay, so this is the first bit we're going to do, halfway to the end. So I'm just going to move that and move that. Let's take it back to the machine there. And just there, that's it. So halfway, so there is that block, that square. And we will start about here. It doesn't matter if it's not quite halfway, as long as it's not the full way across. So let's just stitch across there. Okay, so now we can open that out, and I would say always pop it back onto the layout before you, so that you know exactly where it is going. So I'm going to take this is next to the layout. So I've taken the one to the right, and then I'm going to put that right sides together and align that edge, and that fits just what you wanted it to do. You wanted it to fit along there. Okay, so still with your 1/4 of an inch, and just make sure that is flattened down, and then down here, make sure that lines up, and we can stitch all the way down here. And cut, and then we can open that one up and put it back to where it came from. And the next side is this one, which was down at the bottom, so I'll slide that over, and that one is going to go right sides together here. So we have to twist it round a little bit, but then we're just going to line that point up and start stitching. Yeah, so we start stitching there. Once it's anchored, we can line up at the bottom, and that fits also, which is the whole point of this, that it all fits together really nicely. And apart from making those half square triangles to begin with, everything just lines up automatically. Okay, so there's our next part, and so then we've just got this one here, so that comes back round. That's where we started, that way round, and so then we just take in the piece that's going to fit here. So we've still got a full line that we can stitch, so just hold that seam that we're going to stitch down, line that top edge, always line into that corner, and start stitching there. Make sure those edges line up there, and actually that will go there. If you can see here where the seams cross, that's really good, because we can see where to align that. You see it lines up down here as well, so that we don't stitch across our points, because we do like to, where we can, to get a good intersection and not cut our points off. And if you can see where that intersection is, it really, really helps. Okay, so now let's turn that around. So here all we have is, remember this very first one we did, that partial seam? Well, now we have the rest of it, so we can just flip this down here, and we can align that end, but we will start from where we've started our stitching. So I'm going to flip that way, so that we can start, we stitch to here. I'm going to start from the center out to the edge, so we can still align that, pop our needle back onto the seam that we were stitching. Okay, and this still matches at this end too, so just align that. I can see now here where my point is, and that edge lines up beautifully, and we can just, so it's just pulling away down here, so I'll put my finger underneath just to keep those edges aligned. And stitch, so we are all stitched together. So what I will do now is just give it that final press, and I was going to move it. Okay, so let's just bring this over here. I'm going to press a little bit from the back to begin with, because we want to see which way our seams are going. So I can see this seam wants to press that way. So let's press that way. Oh, that one's shifted a little bit, but never mind. And that one goes there. Actually, that one wants to go Now let's do it around here. There we are. This one's going to go towards there. So I'm just doing a little press from the back, and then just move that around. But then we can make the others go from the front. We'll get an even better press. Okay, so that one's going to go there. I think this one is going to go that way. There we go. And this one is going to go that way also. So we've basically got the seams going in the direction we want them to go. Then we'll flip it to the right side and we'll give it a more thorough press. Okay, so I just give a little pull at the sides so that we can pull those seams out beautifully, because we don't want to press any pleats into it. So we've got not bad a point there. And then similarly here, so look, there would have been a little pleat in that one. So we can press that out. And then that gives a lovely point there. And similarly here, just pull it out to the edges just to get that all pressed beautifully. And there we go. There we go. As straightforward as that. It works. So you just need to see that your triangles are all sweeping around. Oh, that one's going. Yes, so this one's going this way. So is that one, but this smaller one is going in the other direction. So there we go. Oh, it looks a bit, there we are. If I push it up like that, it just looks a bit warped at the bottom because it was laying down. So not that difficult. And I have done that in the hour right from the very start, haven't I? I didn't do any cutting beforehand. I didn't do any half square triangles beforehand. All of that was done within the hour. Oh, it would look lovely as a bed quilt design, wouldn't it? All I have done with mine that's on the wall is I've just put a border around the edges as well. And then it really makes it stand out because it's as though this star is floating on a pale background. So I'll just bring the, let's just bring the camera up a bit so that I will hold it up to you. There we go. Okay. And there it is. There it is. Nice and easy, don't you think? Not too difficult at all, as long as you just follow. The finished size is 15.5. So 15.5, nice big block. So really, if you wanted, if you had 4 of these across, you've got 60 inches, which is a double bed size topper, really. And I think you would just want it perhaps a little bit longer as well. So you could do, well, as a lap quilt, 3 of these is 45 inches. And then if you put a border on it as well, that could easily make it up to a lovely, so 9 of these blocks to give you a lovely lap quilt of at least 45 inches square, which is a good size for a lap quilt. And yes, I will be uploading the demo to YouTube. So, and I'll pop it back in the group as well, or it'll be on the So Totally Trisha page. I tend to bring it back as well, so it's on there, but also on YouTube. So you've got 2 places to look for it. But yeah, I think not bad. When I found this block, I thought that is lovely. And as per usual, I did some of the things my way because I like to make it as easy as I can. On what looks like a complicated design, if I can make it easy, then you'll all have a go, won't you? You will give that a go, Marilyn. That would be fantastic. 20-inch cushions, fantastic. Yes, I added 15.5, 2 for, if you had 2.5-inch strips for your borders. That would give you the 20-inch cushion. Be fantastic. It's very effective, isn't it? But as I say, not too difficult either. Yes. Okay. I think we've done extremely well. We're about 25 to 8. I can hear my dinner being dished up. I'm going to put that down because my arms ache. So all I'll say is thank you so much for joining me tonight and for the rest of the week. We've been on 3 times this week, and we have done for the last couple of weeks, if not month. 3 weeks, 3 different things. This week we've done the finishing of the festive runner. Last night we did a lined drawstring bag, and tonight we've done a patchwork block. Next week, I don't know what we will be doing, but no doubt I'll come up with something over the weekend to inspire and keep your interest for sewing, which I'm sure you're not going to lose interest in sewing, are you? You really like that as well, Joanne. Lovely. So, as Barbara says, have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you so much for your kind comments on saying how you enjoyed it. Stay warm. Stay in the warm. Just get your sewing machine out and have a little play and enjoy the fact that it's not really worth going outside because it's wet, miserable and windy. So enjoy your weekend of sewing or anything else that you may be doing, and I'll see you next week. So bye for now.